it was actually really hard because even my parents, they were not supportive. Like, what I
Mhm.
remember my dad telling me, like, "Do not leave pharmacy." So,
Yeah.
like, a lot what I've noticed is a lot of times, like, the life that I wanna live, it just really doesn't align with what my parents thought would be good for me. Like, even when I
Mhm.
moved from Texas to California, I didn't tell them because I knew they were gonna tell me, like, "It's too expensive to live there. You're crazy." So, I had to just start doing stuff and just telling them after I did it because I was
Yeah.
worried that they would, rain on my parade or introduce doubt that I just didn't have. So, I think just really protecting my energy by surrounding myself with people with kind of the open-mindedness that would really help build me up because I already have my own doubts. If I surround myself with doubters, then I'm never gonna be able to do anything.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Baddies Mean Business. Today we have a really special baddie here to share with you, Miss Quynh Vu. Quynh, she's the founder of Secureland Co. and our San Diego home. She's a real estate investor full time, and we're going to talk about her journey today. So, Quynh, go ahead and introduce yourself and share a little bit more about you.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on the show. For most of my career, I was a pediatric clinical pharmacist. We got into real estate investing about 5 years ago when my husband um, kind of heard about investing online. We were listening to some podcasts, and he was like, "I want to own an Airbnb." So we kind of started a few years ago. We bought our first Airbnb in San Diego, and we've bought multiple properties since then. We've gotten into long-term rentals, midterm rentals, as well as now land investing. I was able to leave my healthcare career last year and am a full-time real estate investor, and it's been pretty exciting so far.
And she's been killing it ever since. I met Quynh at through a friend of mine, Miss Eva. Like I meet so many of my other friends. And we go to like these real estate investment meetups called Invest Her. What I love about you, Quynh, is that you're just a real person, like with real dreams and real goals, and like you're just such the cutest little person too. Let's go
Yeah.
ahead and jump into it. So, Quynh, let's just talk about you. I want to get to know you, like as if we've been best friends for years. So you started off in a typical 9 to 5 and made that leap, and it was really due to your husband. And when did those aspirations begin? Talk about your time of like who you were when you were working 9 to 5 to like who you are now.
Yeah, so it's actually, when I first graduated from pharmacy school, I started working in a hospital pretty quickly. And my parents made it sound like it was going to be like really glamorous to be a pharmacist, but I was working like nights, evenings, weekends, and holidays, like most of the holidays. And I remember the only holiday I would get off is like maybe day after Thanksgiving because people didn't think that was a real holiday. But like I would have to work Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's as a new employee. So the way it's very seniority based when you work at the hospital. So if you're like the newest, then you have the worst shifts. You have evenings, weekends, and you're working the most night shifts. So I also have 4 kids. So when I first moved to San Diego, we were kind of trying to balance, having 4 kids, 3 of them all being under like the age of 6. So we were pretty
Wow.
busy. And I think, after working for I was really grateful to have a job because when I first moved to San Diego, I only had a contract job. So like working these extra shifts and things like that would actually allow me to get like a full-time permanent job. And what I noticed is I was just never having that freedom that we really wanted. And after working a couple of years in the hospital, like I went into like administration, I helped with like management, and I kind of slowly started stepping away from actual patient care. So like half of my time was in management, the other half was in patient care. And then gradually I got another job at another organization where I was entirely like administration. So I wasn't doing any patient care. I did that for a couple years and then I left the hospital completely and I worked with a biotech company, helping them design healthcare analytics for hospital organizations. So it was kind of like further and further away from what I initially went to school for. And we were just kind of trying to figure out how we could possibly, you know, eventually step away from our jobs. Like my husband working in IT, he noticed that they were outsourcing a lot of the jobs within his company overseas. And he kind of told me, like, hey, we need to have some type of exit strategy in the next, couple of years, some second type of income. And at first I thought it was going to be very risky to do investing because I was like, we already have one mortgage. I don't I don't know about getting another one. It just made me really nervous until he told me, it's very risky to only have one source of income. And then like it really changed the way I looked at investing. I looked at it initially as something very risky, and I felt like that because I didn't know enough about it. So now looking at it like, okay, it does make sense not to put all of our eggs into one basket. So I
Right.
think just that conversation, it really don't I still remember it. Like when he said that, that's like when the light bulb went on for me.
Mhm. I think that's, like, something we
Crazy.
all think about too, is, like, the just, like, how, like, I just want stability, like, but there's, like, this very traditional path of, like, you get a job and you grow in that job and you get promotions and it's great, and but then there's, like, these dreams of doing other things, and I think that's something a huge reason why we love having people like you come on is, like, it making that leap is a lot more achievable than it may be, and so, yeah, I
The
w
the other thing I was gonna say too is, like, working in the hospital, like, they release your schedule, like, so many weeks in advance. So if you ask me to go to a wedding, I have to tell you, I'm not sure because I don't have my schedule yet.
yeah.
Yeah.
So just, like, little things like, when I left, the hospital, that was the first time in probably, like, 13 or 15 years of working professionally where I consistently had weekends off. I never even knew
Wow.
what it's like to say, "Oh, yeah, I'm free this
Right.
weekend."
Mhm. And you
Uh-huh.
work so hard in the going to school and doing all these things to just, work and have, crazy schedules and not know when you're gonna have days off or when you're gonna have weekends off, and especially as a mom, I feel like there's a lot of, pressure to be home with your kids, on weekends, and I bet that was probably really challenging for you too. But one thing that, like, obviously there's a bunch of risk factors in it too, but one thing I'm curious about is, what has been, the most rewarding aspect of, switching your career and going into investing, and, you said you had that light bulb moment, what essentially has just been the biggest reward out of all of that for you?
I feel like, last year when I left, healthcare completely, one of the things that we did was we planned a 2-month trip to Barcelona with the family, and it's never something that we even thought would be possible 5 years ago,
Mhm.
but just having the flexibility to work remotely and to still be able to run our business. So, if our only source of income required us to be there in person, it's not something that we would have even attempted, but because of, like, the flexibility that COVID created in terms of working remotely, um and, just kind of trying to celebrate, "Hey, I'm gonna end this chapter in my life." This is something that's been on my bucket list is traveling with our kids while they're still young, because
Yeah.
once they're older, they're not gonna wanna go with us. Like, even now when they're teenagers, they were still reluctant. They still wanted to, like, just kinda stay home and be in San Diego. But I feel like that's something that was really exciting for us is to be able to travel for a pretty long amount of time and live in another country with the kids. That was pretty cool. The other thing too is since I've taken on this, entrepreneurship life, like I'm able to pick up my daughter from school every single day.
Yeah.
And I
Mhm.
never got to do that before. Like when I was working in the hospital, um, my husband did a lot of the drop-offs and pickups, and it just our schedule was just so crazy. So just something as simple as being able to pick up my daughter from school, um, on a regular basis has really made me really happy with my new schedule.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
How do you manage, I feel like it's really often when people get in career changes or even us in our early 20s, trying to navigate whether or not we want to go the traditional route of a 9 to 5, or if we're trying to just like do freelance or make our own schedule. How do you kind of handle those negative thoughts about like, oh, should I be, doing something more secure? Should I be doing something that seems more traditional or normal? And like, why would I leave a secure job? Like, how do you handle those kind of like, either if people are say comments about it, or if it's just more of like a personal, like being hard on yourself about something like that? How do you kind of manage that? Because I feel like we all like doubt, parts of our lives, and obviously careers are a big deal, and they take up most of our life. So how do you kind of handle that part
Oh,
of
no,
it too?
I think that's a really good question, and I'll be honest, I actually had a lot of doubt in whether or not it was the right decision. Like, I
Yeah.
even went to, a spiritual counselor to,
Wow.
like to ask, "Is this the right thing to do?" Like, I wasn't sure,
Yeah.
and, I one of the things I did was I just kinda did it on the side at first. Like, I didn't jump
Yeah.
right into it. I didn't cut off one source of income to create a new source.
Right.
I had to work kind of those long hours, and trying to figure it out. And when we started our rental portfolio, we were the Airbnb hosts at first. We were answering all the messages and the questions and, handling all those crazy, issues that only come up on the evenings, weekends, and holidays.
Yeah,
Of course.
So
makes sense.
so we, I was really nervous, but at that time, we were also starting to meet more people that were doing what we were doing. And what we realized is we're just new at this. It's not that it's risky. It's just that
Yeah.
we just don't know enough about it. So as I got to meet more, real estate investors and entrepreneurs, it kind of made me feel like a lot more at ease with our decision because we've met people who have been entrepreneurs for years and they were just fine. Like they had also left this 9 to 5 route and seeing them really succeed. And also, a lot of times their previous career wasn't even anything related to business. So just seeing that it was possible really opened my eyes to that it's something that I could even consider. And then, I listened to on another podcast one time, they were saying like, "Hey, if you're like a professional, if you're really good at, pharmacy or, you're a physician or you're an attorney, if you're really good in your career, what makes you think you wouldn't be good in another career?" Because people
Valid.
kind of like think, "Oh, this is what I went to school for." They feel like almost trapped
Yeah.
in that career.
Mhm.
Um, so when I made the transition, it was very slow. It was a slow Band-Aid. At first, I was, like, asking my husband, "Oh, should I leave?" He's like, "Yeah, you can leave your job whenever you feel you're ready." So
Yeah.
then now it wasn't even I couldn't even say he's holding me back. Now it was, like, all on
Dang
me.
it.
It's like,
Like,
turn
he
it.
didn't
It's
even
all
get
on me
my
now.
my
It's
excuse
like
is gone.
yeah, like, what? And
Right.
then, like, I still didn't feel ready. So then, like, slowly, I kind of cut back to part-time in my work so I could focus more time in our business. And then I still wasn't ready to leave completely. And, like, this
Yeah,
took me
what
between 12 and 18 months to go from, "I really wanna leave," to actually leaving, and I did it in
Mhm.
small phases, and I think what my husband said was, "If you don't leave your job, I'm gonna leave mine first." And I was like, "Oh, then let's go first."
I wanna, like, dive into that because I feel like that's a feeling everyone feels. It's just like
Yeah.
I think some people may feel guilt. It's like, "Oh, I should just, like, go the distance and just drop my job." But it's like, that's not as easy as it looks, especially when you have kids, like
Right.
and
Mhm.
so for
Other
you
responsibilities.
yes, and so, like, for you, like, are you very, like, happy that you did that and you kind of did it as you were ready for it? Or do you think, like do you wish and understood where your, like, husband was coming from? Like, "Oh, okay, I can leave, like, I can leave, I can go." Like, what made you comfortable to do that?
I think the growing our financial income in those other spheres, those other buckets, as my entrepreneurial income began to meet and exceed the income I was making in my pharmacist job, it became a no-brainer. Eventually, I started making more in my business than I did in my 9 to 5 job. So then that made the decision for me.
That makes sense. Mhm, 100%. And so I'm kind of curious more so now is like, is there like who stands out in your mind of somebody that really just like helped you through this next step? Like a mentor of sorts or just a good friend that you've met because you said that people in their community had just like expanded and they felt a lot more like you as a person.
Well, before this, I was in like a female mastermind with a bunch of other entrepreneurs. And I remember one conversation that someone was like telling me, why don't you just look at it as leaving your job for 12 months and just give yourself like a runway so it's not so permanent? Like, it's not that you are leaving forever. Maybe just tell yourself you're going to give yourself 12 months or 18 months. And if you come back, you come back. And if you don't, you don't. And I felt like that made it easier to look at
Mhm.
it like, okay, I'm just going to take a break.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then if I come back, but once I did take my break, I was like, I don't want to go back
Yeah.
because once you have um, experienced like the freedom of being in the ocean, you can't go back to a swimming pool.
Yeah. That's a
Wow.
powerful statement
That
right
was really
there. What the
powerful.
heck?
But it's so true because I feel like most people want kind of that sense of stability kind of in their mind, and I think that's a really good way to put it. It's like, okay, if this doesn't work out, and I give it a year. If it doesn't work out, then I still have my degree, I still have my previous industry I was in, I still, even if it's not the exact job, like I could still go back to that. Like I still have that as my
Hmm.
backup. And I think that's really powerful too, because then it gives you the perspective of like, okay, I can do this. Let's actually like put it all on the line and try it. But I know in my subconscious that, hey, I'm going to be okay because I can still fall back on that. And putting in that perspective probably really helped you.
I think it was also like just having the pressure of maintaining both lives was
Yeah.
it was nice to release one responsibility and just like focus on one thing, like that mental energy that takes up
Yes.
space in your life, that can be pretty consuming. And I think like for some people, they're able to do two things for a very long period of time. But I think even for me, I'm still kind of hanging on to the vine. I'm still like renewing my pharmacist license, doing all my continuing education, even though I don't see myself going back. Like I feel like I
Mhm.
haven't fully released it.
Yeah.
Mhm. I mean, it makes sense. It's, like, been a year, but it's, like, it's just, like, what you're conditioned to, like, feel, like,
Yeah.
there's always that security blanket ready to go. But do you think it's still you still feel like you can thrive as an entrepreneur, though, although you still have that back of your mind? Like, I don't think it's wrong to have that feeling,
Yeah.
either
I
way.
definitely feel like the cool thing about I think being an entrepreneur is you can create something from nothing. And once you feel like you can do that in one area of business, you're going to see that you can do this in a lot of different areas. And the other thing that I think is pretty cool is I want to say they say that entrepreneurs create the jobs. So,
Oh,
like when you're talking about
yeah.
impact, as well as our business does, the more people we can hire and the more families we're going to be able to impact. Um, so like looking at it from that standpoint is like instead of worrying about looking for a job, now I'm in the position where I can create jobs and opportunities for other people.
Mhm. And what's the most fulfilling part of your job right now, do you think? Like,
Um,
adding on to that, like, is you can even name a specific story that comes to mind, like, you're like, "Wow, this is just such a powerful feeling. I don't wanna ever give up this feeling," you know?
I mean, honestly, I really love when I help someone do their first real estate purchase. Like whether or not it's like the first buying the first piece of land, their first house, or even like their first investment property. I think that transition, I've helped a lot of first time investors. Like, they already have a house and they're buying their second property. Like that, they're very stressed about that whole idea of becoming an investor. And I think if you don't surround yourself with people will, who are kind of interested in the same thing, if you don't surround yourself with other investors, then you're going to be surrounded by a bunch of naysayers.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
those naysayers, they're trying their best to protect you, but they introduce a lot of doubt that's really not necessary. That doubt is there because they may not be fully informed about it. So I think it's really important to like look at who you're taking advice from. Are you taking advice from someone who's already been there, done that? Or are you taking advice from someone that's never done it and never will and doesn't ever even consider thinking about
Mhm.
doing?
Period, Quinn. That's
Yes.
a great point right there. And then,
Mhm.
so it's like for you, how do you kind of keep your head straight? Like, what is the exact thing you do when you hear something like that and you're like, "Oh my god, my pharmacy license is right there. I could see it, but, I'm gonna keep straight," you know?
Yeah.
You know, it was actually really hard because even my parents, they were not supportive. Like, what I
Mhm.
remember my dad telling me, like, "Do not leave pharmacy." So,
Yeah.
like, what I've noticed is a lot of times, like, the life that I wanna live, it just really doesn't align with what my parents thought would be good for me. Like, even when I
Mhm.
moved from Texas to California, I didn't tell them because I knew they were gonna tell me, like, "It's too expensive to live there. You're crazy." So, I had to just start doing stuff and just telling them after I did it because I was
Yeah.
worried that they would, rain on my parade or introduce doubt that I just didn't have. So, I think just really protecting my energy by surrounding myself with people with kind of the open-mindedness that would really help build me up because I already have my own doubts. If I surround myself with doubters, then I'm never gonna be able to do anything.
Well, and it's
Uh-huh.
different when it's your parents, because I feel like, I mean, anybody can say, like, we all still look up to our parents. They raised us. We have admiration for them, and we appreciate their insight, and we do, like, sometimes seek out like, their knowledge and their opinions, but sometimes it can be like, "Okay, this is something that I know I need to do for myself. I need no outside opinions, because if I get them, then I'm going to, like, overthink everything about this new exciting opportunity." And so I
Mm,
think that in and of itself is so hard, and so power to you to be able to, like, kind of remove yourself from the
that's
opinions of
hard.
other people. It's so hard, so
It
That's
hard.
really hard.
it's really hard because but, the way people define stability and security is really different. So, what they look at security is working a job for 30 years. Like,
Yeah,
that's
Mhm.
their goal, that's their dream, right? Like, just to
right.
say that they have financial income that's coming in on a consistent basis, like, they feel like that's security. And I feel like that would be insecure to me because I wouldn't wanna be doing the same thing for 30 years. Um,
Yeah.
I wouldn't wanna have one source of income and one person dictating my livelihood. I wanna have more control over that. So,
Mhm.
it's same story, it's just people perceive risk differently,
Yeah,
and I know that if my parents are giving me guidance, it's based off of their personal experiences, and
right.
if they're unsure of something, it's not necessarily because it's a bad thing, it's just that they don't know enough about it to provide guidance on there. Um, and just kind of just surrounding your if you wanna do something, just surround yourself with those people who are already doing it, and the things that you're worrying about, you're gonna realize it's so small in the big scheme of things, like,
Yeah.
it's just that if you feel that insecure about it, the best thing you can do is learn more about it, so that way you could figure out where that insecurity is coming from. Is it coming from the fact that you don't understand it? Because
Mhm.
when I don't understand something, I'm like, yeah, I feel a
Mhm.
little bit nervous about it.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I think about this
absolutely.
a lot. It's like, regarding our parents, because of course, like, we hold their opinion to the highest, like, superior, but I also think about it, it's like, it's our family's first time, it's everybody's first time living. Like, it's everybody's
Well,
first
yeah.
time going through the experiences, and so there's only so much you can give, like you said, it's like they know what they know, but the world's evolving, the world's changing, and perspectives are shifting, and it's perfectly okay to, like, go and just take the leap and ride the roller coaster rather than, like, coast down the river, who knows? But it's all about, like, just it's everybody's first time. You never
You know,
know.
you remind me of something like a couple of years ago, back in 2000, I wanna say the early 2000s, I was reading this book called The 4-Hour Workweek by Timothy Ferriss, and it was just very revolutionary for me at that time where they kinda talked about, "Hey, you should live in a city that you wanna vacation in." I was like, "That makes sense, like, you don't have that
Yeah.
many vacation days, you should live." So that's why we moved to California, and that whole thinking of like just not even living where it makes sense financially, moving somewhere just for fun. Like that concept is so foreign to people. Like people will move for work, but they won't move for fun.
Yeah.
You feel like
Yeah.
this is a really expensive fun thing to do.
Right.
And I think just just sometimes like people feel like they have to justify what they want. And I was like, if you just want to live somewhere because you want to, that should just be reason enough. Like, why
Yeah.
isn't that enough? Like, people feel like they have to say, I want to live in California because, like, you
Mhm.
can just say, I
It's
just
like,
want to live in California.
Just the vibes, man.
yeah.
And so something I wanted to ask you is because like where there's this whole thing of like how your parents told you, like how do you see yourself like ever since you've made this shift in your lifestyle? Like how do you pass this along to your kids? Like how do you has your what you tell your dreams and how or tell your kids about dreaming, like has that changed?
I think it
What
has. I feel like before I was very adamant on them, going to college after they graduate high school. And I feel a little bit more open
Mhm.
about, before I think I only wanted them to pick a career like engineering, pharmacy, healthcare, or, something that was really, really stable. And now I've kind of shifted, not fully to the point where I tell them I think they should all be entrepreneurs, but I did tell them I think they should always have more than one source of income. So if they choose to work a 9 to 5 job, and even while they're in college, I want to encourage them even in high school, I want them to encourage them to figure out how to create their own little business where,
Mhm.
um, if they were to be laid off, which this happens to a lot of people, they won't feel like it's the end of the world. And I'm also worried about our kids going to college. They finish a 4 year university. What if they can't find a job? Like, I don't want them to put all of their like hope and their happiness into something that they do have some control over, but it's really entirely up to the person and if they're going to get hired. There's a
Yeah.
lot of really it's very competitive, and for every single job that's out there, there may be like 15 to 20 applicants. So those numbers are very low. So I just want my kids to know, like, even if they don't get a traditional job, it doesn't mean that they can't be successful. I want them to know that um, they should feel empowered to create their own success if they can't find it somewhere.
I feel like it's in college. We're not saying like no college. It's just like
Right.
having this well-rounded skill set because you just like never know. The world evolves so quickly. So I think it's a really powerful thing for especially young people to know. It's like
Definitely.
it's not linear. Like whatever you're doing right now, it's probably not what you're gonna be doing in 10 years, and you don't have to have it figured out immediately.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and so many of the jobs that, like, you can see Chat GPT and a lot of this automation already eliminating jobs. So just kind of like trying to teach our kids to have this problem solving skill set that you can't replace, and just trying to encourage them to not seek out jobs where it's just repetitive tasks, right? Because if that's what you're doing, you can be easily replaced.
Mhm.
Yes.
We're on our way. We're on our way.
Yeah.
And so
Mhm.
I want to just understand. So like, we're nearing the end of this episode, and so I want to understand like how your dreams have evolved. Like, what is your dream now that you're on this pathway, of passive income and real estate and community? Like, what's that unorthodox dream that doesn't probably wouldn't have fit in your original mold maybe a couple of years ago?
No, I think that's a great question because, I feel like before, I don't think I had very big dreams because I think I only had dreams that I thought I would know how to achieve. And after being surrounded by a lot of really great entrepreneurs, real estate investors, I really feel like empowered to have a dream that I don't know how to get there. Because if you only dream about things that you know how to do, you're already limiting yourself. And I think my dreams are really around like traveling with my family and just being able to take off an extended period of time without it, financially impacting our family. Um, and those are things I don't think I would have envisioned in the future. My dream before was just to have a job all the way until I retire at the age of 65.
Yeah.
And now it's more like, hey, I don't want to be working when I'm 65. I don't even want to be working when I'm like 45. I want to be
Mm-hmm.
working like maybe just a couple hours a week, checking in on things. But I definitely don't want to be working nights, evenings, weekends. I think the possibility of freedom has really, really impacted and shaped the way I look at my future. And I don't think if I had another source of income, I would be able to see beyond that. Because if you're looking just to meet your ends meet, um, I don't think I said that right. If you're only looking to like pay your bills and, make sure everything is on track, you're not going to be able to think beyond that. And
Right.
we're hoping as our goals and as we get closer to achieving our goals that we are able to contribute more to like charities and functions and community events that have meaning to us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's
What would those
amazing.
be, do you think, in your mind
Yeah.
right now? Is there any that stand out as of right now?
So like when I was selling houses, we would donate to for every house that we sold, we would donate to Rady Children's Hospital because that's where I used to work.
Mm-hmm.
But we've given back in a lot of different ways in terms of like working at like the food bank and we're just trying to figure out how to best utilize our time. Sometimes it'll be a time donation and sometimes it'll be a financial donation. But I think having these additional opportunities, it'll also give us a lot of opportunities to give back as well.
That's incredible. That's always been, I feel like a lot of people's dream is to like everybody's dream is kind of just to obviously make their ends meet, do do something beyond themselves, and then also give back. Like that is something for me that my end goal would be to like help others in any capacity that I can. And I think that's just an amazing like ending message to this episode of just like you transferred into a different career, then now you're thriving in that career, doing the best you can, learning all these new things, and now you can apply that and give that outsource to other people by doing the best you can
Mm-hmm.
to just like give back. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's so powerful and
Yeah.
amazing.
And even on even like the smaller scale, it's like here's the trade-off. The trade-off is you sitting at the dinner table on Thanksgiving or you not sitting at the dinner table on Thanksgiving. And like
Exactly.
that in itself is very powerful motivation to do something out of your comfort zone. And that's something I admire a lot in you. And regardless of what you think, there's gonna always be people who do a lot and reached a lot of success, but like you and yourself, you're a hero to somebody. Because you've done something that was completely it's a decision somebody's sitting with right now that they haven't been able to get to that point quite yet. So
Yeah.
that's
And
amazing.
I think like a lot of times people don't feel like they have a choice. That's
Mm-hmm.
how I felt when I was working in the hospitals. Like I didn't like my schedule and my husband was like, "Well, you picked this job." And I
But I
was
didn't
thinking,
know.
Like,
but like at the
yeah.
same time, like I felt like I didn't have a choice, but we all have a choice. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we don't feel like we have a choice. And I think it all comes back to like personal accountability. If you're not happy with the way your life is, what are you doing? What are you doing about it?
Right. Just
Mm-hmm.
change it.
100%.
Easier said than done, of course, but change it.
Is there any closing thoughts you have for us, Quinn, as we close out this
Um,
episode?
I would just say like, hey, if you're thinking about doing some type of investing or thinking about just doing something that's non-traditional, I would say just kind of keep an open mind. Just because it's non-traditional to you doesn't mean it's not normal for someone else, Like
Mm-hmm.
other
Right.
people have lived their lives and an entrepreneurial life is traditional to them. They don't know any
Mhm.
different.
Uh-huh. That's
Very,
a
very
really good
true.
way of putting it. Thank you
Mhm.
so much, Quinn. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you,
joining us
Quinn.
today. Where can people follow you
Yes.
online?
They can follow me on our San Diego home on Instagram or at Secureland Co. building up our social media for Secureland Co. So you can see some more posts there. And we also have a YouTube channel if you want to learn a little bit more about investing as well.
Mhm. 100%. Please follow those accounts, guys, if you want to learn more about real estate investing. Quynh has a lot of fun stories about her land clients. You could not imagine that the amount of imagination some people have when it comes to land. Um,
Yes.
but other than that, thank you so much for listening up to this point, and we will all talk to you all next week.
Bye, baddies. Thank you, Quynh.
Bye.